The 1976 Miami Dolphins began with 6 consecutive preseason wins, and following 6 straight years of 10 or more regular season victories, continued success seemed assured. But when the Dolphins opened their bicentennial season on a Monday night in Buffalo, the main topic of conversation was the sudden return to the Bills of O.J. Simpson, an NFL star of some magnitude. Only once did the juice get loose. In fact, it was the spirited Dolphins who rolled up the yardage, 400 yards worth. Fullback Norm Boulash led the way with more than 100 yards on the ground. The season's first touchdown was scored by halfback Benny Malone, and the 1976 Dolphins were on their way. Quarterback Bob Greasy hit 13 of 21 passes, including a spectacular touchdown to wide receiver Nat Moore, and the Miami offense looked just about unstoppable. But the Dolphins' once impregnable pass defense began to show the first signs of leakage, and this was a malady which would return to plague them throughout the season. All through the night, every time the Bills would score, the Dolphins would come right back. And in an offensive splurge for the Monday night national audience, Miami finally prevailed 30-21. Counting preseason, the Dolphins had won 7 consecutive games. And when they traveled to Foxborough, Mass, in search of their 8th straight, Bob Greasy flipped a touchdown pass to Andre Tillman, and Miami led 7-6 until just before halftime, when a young quarterback named Steve Grogan took charge for New England. In his best day as a pro, he led the Patriots to what Coach Chuck Fairbanks called their best game in years, and a 30-14 upset win over the Dolphins. Joe Namath and the New York Jets came to Miami for the Dolphins' home opener, in which Charlie Babb's third-quarter interception was the game's most critical play. The Dolphin defense, in fact, effectively sealed off everything the Jets tried to do, while on offense, the Miami running attack, led by Benny Malone, controlled the game with more than 200 yards on the ground. The game's only touchdown was scored by tight end Jim Mandich, as the Dolphins rolled past the Jets 16-0 and looked forward to big times ahead. Entering the 4th week of the season, the Dolphins were 2-1 and ready to show a national TV audience how they stacked up against the 3-time NFC West champion Los Angeles Rams. Norm Boulash helped Miami to a 14-0 halftime lead. And for an appreciative Don Shula, it was an exhilarating moment. But in the second half, James Harris and the Rams found the Achilles heel of the Dolphins, the deep pass defense. Ron Jesse's 58-yard play finally put the Rams on the scoreboard. But a Larry Little block sprung Stan Winfrey for his first NFL touchdown, and Miami was back in control at 21-7. But then Ron Jesse did it again, this time scoring on a disputed juggling catch at the back line of the end zone. Suddenly, finding themselves behind by a touchdown, Bob Greasy and Nat Moore put together a 4th-quarter drive of just 2 plays. And despite a sprained finger on Greasy's passing hand, the Dolphins tied the game at 28. James Harris, behind playbook perfect pass protection, finished a 436-yard afternoon with another long pass, this time to the other wide receiver, Harold Jackson, whose catch set up the last-ditch field goal, which ended one of the wildest games of the year in the NFL. The following week, another national TV audience found the Dolphins in Baltimore to face the team and the man they knew they must defeat in order to have any chance for a division title. The Dolphins weren't able to pressure Burt Jones often enough, as he completed 11 of 14 passes, and the Colts built a 28-7 lead early in the third quarter. In the second half, Earl Morrall replaced the injured Bob Griese, and the man who is second only to George Blanda in NFL games played heaved a bomb to Nat Moore for 67 yards, the Dolphins' longest play of the year. Trailing 28-14, Morrall and the Dolphins almost scored on a pass to Howard Twilley, but somehow it was just not to be. For perhaps the first time all season, the realization was beginning to sink in. For so many reasons, the glory years were going to be harder than ever to recapture. In this strangest of seasons for the Dolphins, next the Kansas City Chiefs visited Miami for Week 6 of the NFL season, in a match between two of the league's most potent offensive teams. Bob Griese hit 25 of 35, including a fourth-quarter touchdown to Howard Twilley, which gave Miami the lead 14-10. But then the big play Chiefs came up with one of their biggest, a 59-yard end-around by Henry Marshall, which gave the Chiefs the lead 17-14 with just 2 minutes remaining in regulation time. Then Bob Griese found Howard Twilley 3 more times for the yardage that enabled Twilley to surpass the 3,000 mark for his career. And more importantly, enabled Garo Yepremian to kick for the tie from 27 yards out with just 9 seconds left. At the Chiefs' 7-yard line with 2 minutes left in overtime, the football and probable victory were pried from the grasp of Norm Bulash, whose fumble was his only fumble in 150 plays for the season. At the time, Bulash was playing despite a shoulder separation which would sideline him for the next 2 games. But there was no consolation for the snake-bitten Dolphins, who had played their hearts out in a game that more and more reminded everyone of a ghost of Christmas past. In 1971, the Dolphins had begun their first run to postseason glory with a field goal in sudden death overtime. And now, Jan Stenerud, who had missed a potential game winner in 71, would have another shot. Stenerud's kick bounced off the upright with just 17 seconds left, and the Chiefs had won the strangest game of the NFL season, 20-17. After 6 games, the Dolphins' record was an unbelievable 2-4. And even more unbelievable was the fact that 8 players had already been lost to knee surgery. In fact, 3 linebackers, Mike Colon, Ernest Roan, and first-round draft choice Kim Bocamper, were lost in preseason. And another linebacker, Andy Selfridge, was lost in the opener. Every one of them to knee surgery. In all, 22 men missed playing time that added up to 144 games. And Manny Fernandez missed the entire season. Despite all the injuries, the Dolphins suffered through their frustrations and split their final 8 games, actually outscoring their opponents along the way. But frustration was the keynote, as 4 of the Dolphins' losses were by a combined total of just 11 points, including a loss to the division-winning Colts by the margin of 1 blocked extra point. For Don Shula, the winningest active NFL coach, it would indeed be a winter of discontent. Managing general partner Joe Robbie has seen the Dolphins achieve the NFL's best record in the 70s. And in '76, Robbie signed Don Shula, the architect of that success, to a new 5-year contract. Bill Arnsparger, Tom Keene, and Mike Scarry will be back to rebuild the injury-racked defense. Among the returning defenders will be Tim Foley, who missed a dozen games due to knee surgery. The other starters at cornerback in '76 were third-year man Jerris White, number 41, and 7-year regular Curtis Johnson, number 45. At safety, Dick Anderson returned from knee surgery and made an important interception in the victory over Tampa Bay. At free safety, Barry Hill will be returning from knee and shoulder surgery to compete with number 48, Ken Ellis, who came in a mid-season trade engineered by Coach Shula and his director of pro scouting, George Young. Returning from 2 postseason knee operations will be one of the NFL's strongest strong safeties, big play hit man Charlie Babb, number 49. The first linebacker chosen in the '76 NFL draft was number 50, Larry Gordon, and he lived up to all expectations by stepping in for the injured Mike Colon and finishing the season with 75 unassisted tackles, second only to the record-setting totals of middle linebacker Steve Towe. Backing up the other side of the line was 10-year veteran Bob Matheson, who missed 3 games due to injury, and significantly, the Dolphins lost all 3. After 14 illustrious years, Nick Bonaconte made his last appearance in the middle. But at the bottom of almost every Dolphins defensive play was number 56, Steve Towe, who was in on an incredible 217 tackles, 53 more than the record he set as a rookie the previous year. And Towe's performance was more than needed because of injuries to defensive stalwarts like end Bill Stanfield, number 84. Filling in at end was second-year man John Andrews, number 70, while the tackle positions were manned by Bob Hines, former number 1 draft choice Don Reese, number 60, and again harassing quarterbacks was the quick pursuing Randy Crowder, number 74. There were many different defensive lineups presented during the '76 season, but one lineman who always seemed to play it tough, no matter what the circumstances, was the 6-year defensive end Vern Den Herder, number 83. There is no question that Don Shula, Bill Arnsparger, and company will be making changes to plug the holes in the defense, which just a few short years ago won back-to-back Super Bowls. But led by the youthful enthusiasm and super toughness of youngsters like Steve Toll, the nucleus is there, around which to build the champions of tomorrow. Garo Yepremian possesses the best lifetime field goal percentage of any player in NFL history, while elsewhere on the special teams, the capable punting of Larry Seipel was made all the more effective by the kamikaze charges of young hitters like Gary Davis, Ted Bachman, Rusty Chambers, and Stan Winfrey. There were two supercharges added to the kickoff return teams. Number 27, Gary Davis, a 6th-round draft selection from Cal Poly, and number 26, Juriel Harris, a 3rd-round choice from New Mexico State. Two more glowing testimonials to the drafting insight of player personnel director Bobby Beathard. The crowning jewel of the special teams was number 86, Freddie Solomon, whose actions on the field spoke louder than any words possibly could. The always strong offensive line was intact only for the first 4 games of '76. The mainstays were the Super Bowl veterans, tackle Wayne Moore, guard Bob Kuchenberg, all-pro center Jim Langer, and guard Larry Little, who also played 4 games at tackle. These were the men who opened the gates for the madcap thrashing of Benny Malone, number 32, the man who runs like he's falling down a flight of stairs. Benny Malone admits that he just as soon hit people as avoid them, and this philosophy matches that of fullback Don Nottingham, number 36. Norm Bulash was the main reason that Don Shula got almost 1,000 combined yards rushing from the fullback position. Bulash was second to Benny Malone in rushing and was also second in receiving for the Dolphins with 28 receptions. Also ready to contribute at fullback was second-year man Stan Winfrey, number 33. And with the emergence of new starters like number 64, guard Ed Newman, along with the continued efforts of linemen like Darrell Carlton, Tom Drugas, and Mel Mitchell to spring young speedsters like number 27, Gary Davis, the Dolphins' running attack appears ready once again to break loose. For offensive coaches John Sandusky, Howard Schnellenberger, and Carl Tassif, the passing game provided most of the excitement in '76. Youngsters like Andre Tillman, number 87, and second-round draft choice Load McCrary, number 80, were excellent insurance at the tight end position, while on third down from any position, number 20, Larry Seipel, came through with some pressure plays. One of Bob Griese's favorite clutch receivers was tight end Jim Mandich, number 88, who scored the only touchdown in the hard-fought victory over New England, and once again lived up to his acrobatic reputation as Mad Dog Mandich. Bob Griese completed 60% of his passes, despite his own injuries and injuries to most of his wide receivers, including the last of the original Dolphins, number 81, Howard Twilley, who departed in mid-season for knee surgery. The team's leading receiver, Nat Moore, number 89, played a big part in both victories over the Jets. But in the second Jet game, Moore was forced out by a broken leg. The loss of Twilley and Moore opened up a starting role for rookie wide receiver Duriel Harris, and the unheralded Harris made the most of his opportunity. Duriel Harris, who led the NFL in kickoff returns, showed he also has the ability to become an outstanding pass receiver. And then there was the man they simply call fabulous. Number 86, Freddie Solomon, spent the first half of the season recovering from kidney surgery. But then the second-year sensation from Tampa turned on the afterburners. And there aren't many afterburners in pro football or anywhere else that can keep up with the electrifying efforts of wide receiver Freddie Solomon. In the rematch against Buffalo, quarterback Don Strock found Freddie Solomon 5 times for more than 100 yards as the Dolphins rolled up 45 points and defeated the Bills for the 14th consecutive time. But it was Freddie Solomon who stole the show, as he accounted for 252 total yards, including 3 touchdowns of 50 yards or more, an accomplishment that will place him in the NFL record book alongside names like Gale Sayers and Billy Cannon. Despite some outstanding performances, it was not a pleasant season for the Dolphins. While most observers were sympathetic to the siege of knee injuries, which so obviously handicapped him, Coach Don Shula won't wait for an orthopedist to cure the problems. Anyone who knows pro football knows that Don Shula's Dolphins will be back. It's only a matter of time.